I have a question about the polysemy. I don't know if I may have missed this. Do you have an account or proposal of what polysemy actually consists in? So in particular, I wasn't clear in the end whether the claim is that polysemy, when we learn the meaning of a polysemous item, we're learning one sort of, in some sense, complex concept, or whether the view is still that we're learning multiple concepts, so each kind of cap is a different concept, but there's still overlap between them in some way that distinguishes it from the homophony.
Yeah, the second thing, definitely. Yeah, so I mean, I think one way we can start to think about that is our actual experience with these concepts. So our experience with these concepts will possibly in memory overlap on a number of features, and they might still have distinct context. But yeah, you sort of learn from the common label, you sort of learn to overlap those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it still leaves me with a question. So if the idea is that somehow, pen cap and baseball cap and bottle cap and cue are all instantiations of different concepts. And similarly over here, right, a baseball bat and a flying bat, when we encounter them in the world, they're instantiations of different concepts. Over on the polysemy side, the claim is that our experience with them having the same label
and shared features.
So now we come back to the features question. Right?
Well, yeah, it doesn't have to be like features that I can enumerate and draw on the board to you. They can be abstract, but I think there's no denying that they have overlapping features, whether it's abstract or whether they share the same handle, or whether they're used in the same way. That's going to be, I mean, feature is the best word we have for it, but there's overlap.
But the claim is that the similarity, it sounds like what you're saying is that to the extent that there is overlap or similarity in the case of polysemy, the similarity or overlap somehow exists in the world, and we as language users are able to see that. Because I'm trying to figure out what really now is distinguishing between polysemy and homophony.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously in our construal. I don't think any of this is in the world, given that there's so much cross-linguistic variation. So you have to learn these things. You have to learn that speakers of your language call these two concepts the same thing, and that it makes sense when you, it makes sense because of these, the overlapping things you have.
Yeah. But the point, and I'll stop. But the point is still, on the polysemy side, speakers are somehow able to recognize similarity, and on the homonymy side, there's no similarity for them to recognize.
Oh, no, I mean, the similarity just really isn't useful, right? It would be like some superordinate thing that would never help you discriminate a bat from any other item or thing, or something smaller than the size of a house. Maybe would be the description you would get for a bat or other homophonous things. But in polysemy, the overlap is useful, right? It's a cue.
You're also allowing, I think, for there to be a kind of cases of highly similar to mid-similar. So it's not supposed to be a strict division.
Yeah, I always forget to talk about that, but I absolutely believe that polysemy exists on a climb between actually vagueness and homophony, right? So there is some generalization and there's some keeping of the actual exemplars, but yeah, I think Tuggy and a number, Gerards and a number of other people have shown some really compelling theoretical evidence to believe that, yeah, this is absolutely on a climb. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the experiments, it looks like there's, it's obvious there's a difference in the stimuli, but yeah, I definitely think there's a climb between the two, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm just going to quickly follow up on this question, maybe asking the same question from a different angle. Is there any way where we can distinguish learning a polysemous word and then learning a category, especially in your experimental paradigm? Participants might be thinking that, well, I'm learning a category, they might have different names, but I'm just going to put them in the same category, and the category's name is X. Is that a possible explanation? And is it conceptually different from learning a polysemous word?
I just don't understand why you would want to lose the exemplars that you've experienced, right? Because if you're saying, oh, the meaning is now this category,
but
that's
you see a
broader,
Dalmatian, Chihuahua, and then some other dog, and then you can learn names, right? But you also want to learn a label for the category, dogs. It's useful. So that's like something that you would naturally do as a word learner.
But you specifically created the stimuli so that there were no shared features. So it was created that way so that it's not
like you could infer circle from one set, but there are circles in the foils of that set as well. Yeah, so no, right, I'm mindful of that in the design. And in terms of, theory, I think it's like, we definitely categorize things, but I think polysemous labels absolutely exist across things that we believe to be really important categories, like really salient categories.
I don't know whether I can describe this in short terms, but there's an intermediate case between having an underspecified category and having a lot of exemplars, and it's the in-between cases that I think are the most troublesome. In the work I've been doing on morphology, we've been thinking about sister categories or sister words like ambition and ambitious, where you don't want to say, well, there's an ambit lying there somewhere in the lexicon that those are both derived from. Rather, they're sharing structure. And as you talk about sharing features, it made me think of that. You might say the different caps are sister concepts. They're separate concepts. They're related to each other in a way that and that are not. They're only phonologically related.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to actually the family resemblances idea from Eleanor Roche that, you can recognize commonalities without necessarily having like a list of features.
Yeah, just to continue on that point a little bit more, I think, so, right, some polysemous words are labeling very similar, sort of ontologically similar, just different, a range of objects having family resemblance to one another, but then other polysemous words are moving from concrete into abstract, like grasp an object versus grasp an idea. And other forms of polysemy are moving from, as we saw yesterday, from something like object to thing contained. So baby bottle, drinking the bottle versus holding on to the bottle. So polysemy, I think, encompasses a wide range of phenomena that we usually label as categorization.
Oh, I don't need. I have a similar question for both of you. I'm wondering about if you've looked at any individual level variation in between your subjects. So Sammy, if you've looked at kind of the AQ or something equivalent in your adult speakers, if tendencies to be more like focused, narrow, stronger like categorization tendencies in different participants makes a difference, and if you've seen that in your kids. Sorry, and the other half is, do you think that the availability of certain verbs in Chinese, for example, like you said, gao was like was that center group for the kids, and you said that adults don't usually use that, but also in between dialects, gao doesn't exist even for kids or adults, right? So do you think that the availability of that plays a feature in this?
I haven't looked at the individual variations in their use of those verbs. Mm-hmm. Just intuitively, I think there is. For example, like the generic verb used by the adults and children, there are actually different generic verbs that could be used to say gao or long. And I did notice there was some individual variation in choosing which generic verb. So in other words, when there are possibility for multiple verbs that could apply to describe the same, you do see there's variation among children and also among adults in preferring, in a way it's, I don't know how to categorize it because in a way it's kind of idiosyncratic. For example, even for the breaking, snapping the steak event, some adults use a stylistically more formal verb to describe snapping the steak, while the majority of the adults use the prototypical breaking, snapping verb. There is, I would say there is individual variation in their choice of verbs. In a way, you can't say it's, if you look at child data, that's an error. I wouldn't say that's an error. It's more complex, just saying, children did not behave like adults, then, that's some kind of error. But the child's use of the generic verb, actually, in those cases, it will be accepted by adults because it described the event is just at a different level of granularity. It's not as specific as, what instrument is involved, what objects involved. So, I don't have a good answer for how to categorize this kind of variation and why would a learner or speaker choose one possible verb over the other. We haven't examined this systematically, but yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, so then like the same conceptual dimension of difference of like, oh, I like big pictures, I'm fine, everything's okay. Like lumper versus splitter could be some measure of that idiosyncrasy that you're mentioning, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So we have one here, two, three.
So, Sami, thank you for the talk. I would like to bring it back again to the homonymy polysemy discussion. And this is just a comment about the statistics you had that was 4% for homonymy and 40% for polysemy. And I know that a lot of times these statistics are used as a measure or as some sort of I guess, measure of learnability or a coordinate for learnability. And if you're not planning on arguing for that, ignore my comment. But the fact that homonymy falls out of sound change versus when polysemy falls out of semantic change automatically gives you that range of statistics because there's only so many opportunities for sounds, or for vowels basically most of the time, to change and give you two words that sound the same, but the semantic space is very flexible and so there's more opportunity for semantic change, extension. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say to that, yeah, is that luckily we have learning data, which is, yeah, separate from that statistical argument, yeah. Actually, yeah, I think a lot about whether people try to use, maybe implicitly try to use polysemy as a way to learn things that might be disparate. So I really believe, people think that an ear of corn is somehow like an ear. I really believed that pit inside of like a fruit, like an apricot pit or something, was kind of like polysemy because it's inside of an oppression in a plane and it's naturally occurring or something. Yeah, so I definitely think there's they're not etymologically related. They come from different roots. I looked it up. I think there's definitely a dissociation about how these things change over time. Which is definitely dependent on production and things like that. Yeah.
I just have a question. So I can understand that homophony are two different words from different sources and so forth, and that polysemy, there's some relationship. What about words that are definitely related, but they have the opposite meaning, like dust, where dust means to put dust or to take away dust, and to seed means to put seeds or to take away seeds? Is there another category?
Mahesh Srinivasan has acquisition work on this at Berkeley. So he showed that young children up until the age of 6 a good subset of them believes that to dust means to apply dust onto something.
It does.
Yeah.
That's one of the meanings, like you take snow, it's
Oh,
snow
okay.
dust.
You mean dusting. Yeah, yeah.
But they only think it.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, they're using the goal bias of, in language to really infer that, yeah, that is the meaning of it, which
But
is
the
not the
fact is,
particle.
but the fact is it is both.
Yeah.
And so I just wondered if there's another category for that.
You know, a thing and its opposite are related. They're usually associates.
They're
Yeah.
associated, but they're, I mean, we have synonyms and antonyms, right? So we have antonymous polysemy.
So, I think this makes sense anyway, but this is the first about polysemy, not homonymy, it's found then. So, in some sense, what people are learning in the polysemy tradition is one word with a bunch of different meanings, and sometimes they're learning a bunch of different words. So they kind of get a frequency advantage in the polysemy case, right? They're learning one word, they're hearing that one word quite a lot, whereas in the other tradition they're hearing separate words which happen to have the same form, and they're hearing each word a little bit less. And I'm wondering, does that make sense, first of all? And second, is it consistent with what you think is happening? And if not, how might you distinguish?
I mean, you can't really argue that it's the same word. Like, I mean, there are objects that are novel to them, they differ, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, in a sense, it's like falls out of what we're saying because, you know, a strong amount of overlap would start to make you think that the objects might be, you know, actually functionally the same, right? Sorry.
Or just to sort of clarify, it's the same one in the sense that, you know, kind of the way people are suggesting that you have a term which we conceptualize it as having a bunch of different meanings related to it, as opposed to, I mean, this is what we mean by polysemy, right? As opposed to conflicting entities which happen to have the same form. This lack of a conflict, and in that sense there may be sort of a frequency advantage. And I wonder if that's the same thing that you're saying, or whether it's a separate explanation.
I mean, yeah, but like sort of a level down. So yeah, you're getting frequency of like, you know, features, or the semantic space that overlaps is getting reinforced a bunch, and that actually that's like mutual reinforcement between these common meaning areas. So yeah, but not in the like whole object sense, more like in like what I know about these objects. Yeah. So yes.
Thinking about cutting, tearing, and breaking, I'm wondering if you're really looking at the semantics. So you could assume that it's a meaning that something like X causes Y to not be whole, and that what you're looking at is the pragmatics of the usage of the different words with the same semantic representation. And it seems to me that one way you could look at that is to look at the different distributions of those words. So if I say, I cut something into pieces, or I tore something into pieces, that's not redundant. But if I say I broke something into pieces, it is redundant. So there must be something in the semantics differentiating the verb break from the other two. And is that something that you're picking up in your analysis?
That's a very good point. I think cut verbs and break verbs have been studied and shown they behave syntactically differently. And you know, the syntactic difference behaviors is related to their semantics. For example, even though they both include action and result, cut verbs, cut-type verbs highlights the action portion, and the break verb highlights the resultant state portion. And then in syntactic behaviors, they alternate in different constructions. We haven't looked at the actual how these verbs are used at phrasal level. We don't know if these participants describe these events. For example, she broke the chocolate in halves, or whether just say she broke the chocolate, or she cut the banana in pieces. So I think it's an interesting area to look into and see how I mean, the syntax and semantics actually plays a role in their choice of verbs and how they interact with the actual semantics.
And do you have any evidence that what you're looking at is the semantics?
What would be yeah. I was trying to think, what would be a clear evidence showing, we are examining exactly just, it's not.
Listening first. Taking on what Eric was saying, one old classic piece of evidence that policies are verbs as do-so test, and that also is relative, but it's true that it doesn't sound so bad to say I'm wearing a nightcap. And so is the bottle and the pen.
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, these tests have sort of been shown to yield conflicting results in a lot of cases, which is interesting as well. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a testament to it being on a client because it might sound slightly better, but there's still something pretty misleading and uncooperative about using, if you were to, start a conversation trying to convey what you were wearing or what you were doing.
And there are any polysemous examples that sound fine that way, so you're not worried about there being some point at which they have enough in common that they are.
Yeah, I think then it would just become vagueness. It would be more likely to be vagueness. Yeah, like if you're talking about your aunt and aunt, right? It's not weird to imply fraternal aunt of the others later in the sentence it's a compound test. But yeah.
So one of the example you gave, Pastor Bomb, is use of the word where you wouldn't use that with a bottle, but if you seems to me a lot better if you say both the bottle and I both have a cap on. Each have a cap on, something like that. That works for me quite well.
But it just apply.
I mean, I don't think the situation where that works, but if there was such a situation, I might want to.
I agree, this example doesn't in theory. There are friends who are running. Eventually they're going to be different.
The fridge is running and so am I.
I mean, if you can do that, then you can also say, I have a bag, so does Sammy.
Another question, I think.
Back to Jinan, did you say that there's a certain one distinction that all three languages make in the cut and break, and is that generalized across other languages, that there's some shared distinctions? Yes. And is that particular distinction the first that comes into virtual? Are they accurate with that earliest?
Yes, in the three languages we examine. Okay, so the term category is distinguished by virtually.
So going back, I think touching on somebody else's question, so there may be some perceptual or functional distinctions that are most salient regardless of language that kind of provide some foundations for something.
So I wonder about cutting and breaking. This is a really hard one. So you're not going to be able to answer it, but maybe you have a comment. But when does cutting and breaking stabilize? The vocabulary of cutting and breaking stabilize children when they become equal to adults, and it's really different in the different languages. And you think there's a possibility of sort of predicting why a certain language children in a certain language stabilize at one age and in another they stabilize at another.
Right, so the oldest children group we have looked at was 6 years old, and so far in the data, they are not exactly adult-like. So I guess I'm speculating, probably around a certain age when they're older, they will be more adult-like. I don't know for sure, but at least in my Mandarin data, I also look at very young children. I look at 2.5-year-olds. So even for 2.5-year-olds. Their basic categories of cutting, breaking, tearing at 2.5 years old was already adult, like in a ballpark of the adult usage. I think the language-specific categorization starts from early age, and the development trajectory can take a long time to fine-tune these boundaries and figuring out the semantic dimensions, how they are weighted. It take a long time, but I don't know at exactly what age.
I think that for color, for instance, it seems to stabilize in different ages in different languages when the color vocabulary stabilizes, and it's not very easy to predict exactly when. So I was hoping maybe it was easier in your domain.
It struck me that it struck me that in the cases the children were not like the adults, they were using light verbs, and it reminded me of Zara's talk, so it made me wonder whether they couldn't think of the right word or the more specific word, so they went with something more general. So I wonder if you did a forced choice task and gave them two options, if they'd be even more like adults at a younger age.
That's possible, and I remembered when the child used a generic verb, many of those instances were actually applied to, we call it unfamiliar cutting or tearing, because it's less prototypical. For example, we have an event where a person used a blade of the scissors instead of 2 blades of scissors to cut something. So most children used different verbs different from adults, because it's like, okay, there's instrument involved, but you really need to know is the exact part of the instrument that decides which verb you are going to use. So for Mandarin children, they use the cut with scissors verb, which for adults, they never use the cut with scissors, because even though scissors is there, but it's the blade that's involved. So they use the other verb, cut with single blade. So yeah, for generic verb, I think definitely in many cases children do not have a specific verb that they're too sure about, then they went for the generic verb, which is acceptable. Yeah, it's just less specific.
And just a comment that, it's not really a question because it would be an unfair question, but just a comment, which is that it's amazing that kids have to pick up on all these features and relationships between things, and somehow they do, but there's so many dimensions to consider, right? And
yes.
Exactly. How do you hone in on the right dimension?
Especially since we can understand them very well.
Yeah.
So that they have successful communication.
Did we miss anyone, or is that a nice note, Jen? Let's thank our speakers.